When you are young and fun and beautiful, there's actually nothing like the promise that a night out in a city like Joburg holds. It's that anticipation that starts to grow at sunset. You know, that feeling that by the time the sun rises again tomorrow morning, anything could have happened. This is Ora. She loves a good night out in Joburg.
I love the energy. It has this vibe. As long as you have the right energy and perspective, then anything can happen.
Ora describes herself as a city girl.
A single girl, but who's like a little bit chaotic, doesn't really care what men think of her. Somebody who's kind of subverting the notions of what it means to be a 30-year-old or a 20-year-old woman. Independence, or not like financially independence, like emotionally independence, intellectually independence, sometimes financially independence. Just a young woman who's figuring it out in the urban space and isn't willing to let anybody else make the rules for her.
Another thing about city girls, they're street smart. Johannesburg is dangerous. It's crime-ridden. Not everyone who heads out into the night is there for harmless fun. So city girls keep their wits about them.
People are crazy out here, and there's a lot of abusers and there's a lot of scary people out there. So you just really have to do everything you can to keep yourself safe. I mean, you're going to encounter either some kind of petty crime or a violent person, or those things they're kind of just like minefields on the ground of going out. Something's going to happen.
Most nights, Ora just witnessed the crazy things that go on the streets of Johannesburg. But then there were those other nights, the unlucky nights, the ones when she was the one to step on a so-called landmine. This is the story of one of those nights. Welcome to Golden City. I'm your host, Zanele MG, and I love a good story. This podcast is a collection of the greatest stories I've ever heard about the city of gold, Johannesburg, South Africa. In each episode, you'll meet a different Joburger who will tell you their own true stories in their own words. All the ups and downs, adventures, lessons, wins and losses that make life in Joburg truly interesting. This concrete jungle may not have mountains or beaches to compete with the natural beauty of other South African cities, but the diverse and amazing people who call Johannesburg home make this golden city shine bright. What a story. How do you feel about that? Tell me more. Kitchener's Carvery Bar in Braamfontein, downtown Jozi, is the second oldest bar in the city. It's meant many things to many Joburgers for more than a century. Lord Kitchener, who the bar is named after, was a ruthless colonial warlord. And so that karma may or may not have something to do with some of the unfortunate things that happened there. Since 1889, Kitchener's has stood on the same corner, witnessing Braamfontein go through many changes. It was a whites-only area during apartheid, before the flight of white businesses and patrons left Braamfontein a rather run-down, crime-ridden area. 10 years ago, property developers began gentrifying downtown Joburg. They converted buildings into cafes, art galleries, bars, apartment buildings, and other kinds of spots that drew Joburg's hip, young creatives to the area, and to Kitchener's in particular. Ora was a part of that crowd.
A great night to go would be like a Wednesday or a Thursday. You pull up and you really don't know who to expect. You could bump into, that famous TV presenter or that famous person from 340ml, or you can also bump into that weird guy who's always like scavenging for weed, and all of them will be equally entertaining. The great thing about Kitchener's is that any kind of person can be there.
So the night in question had started like so many other nights out before.
I go out with my friend Vanessa one night. We go to a house party. We meet some guys. We go to Kitchener's with them. Now, we're kind of on a weird double date where she's with the guy she wants and I'm just there with his friend and I'm not feeling the friend. So when we get to Kitchener's, I just start moving and I start talking to this other guy and he's really cute. He's dressed so well. He was pretty cute. And honestly, he was just in the right place at the right time. But he was also well dressed, which is, yeah, something I'm into, obviously. So we start talking, blah, 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 blah. I decide, you know what, no, I'm going to take him home. And I mean, he agreed. So we go home, we hook up, everything's fine. The next day, he's like, I want to see you again. Let's meet at Kitchener's on X day at X time. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll be there. In my mind, it doesn't occur to me like why he doesn't take my number or whatever. But I meet him at Kitchener's at that date, at that time.
So you're saying so you guys been home together. The next morning, he's like, let's make a plan now while we're still together.
Yes.
Not like I'll call you. He was like, let's meet tomorrow. Yes. Okay. All right. Like, oh, he really wants to see me.
Yes, he's so intentional.
He's intentional. So a few days later, Ora heads back to Kitchener's for another date with the well-dressed, intentional guy who'd been in the right place at the right time.
I go to Kitchener's, meet up with him, obviously super excited and cute. And my friends join the table and we hang out and my phone goes missing, which of course, if you know Kitchener's, is completely normal, unfortunately. So I don't think too much of it, but it was a bit inexplicable because I had been sitting at that table by the window, the low one. So it would have been quite difficult for somebody to steal my phone, but crazy things happen at Kitchener's all the time. So I didn't second guess it. And then, you know, the night ends. I'm with this guy who's helped me obviously look for my phone, and he's been comforting me the whole time. And he's telling me how, you know, it's okay if I want to cry about the phone, and he understands if I'm sad about the phone. And I was a little bit ambivalent just because at this point I'd been going to Kitchener's for a few months, and it was probably like the second phone that had been stolen there. And also just life in South Africa, you know, you become hardened to petty crime, which is not okay, but it's just one of the realities of living here. So he and I go back to my apartment again. We have sex, we have fun, pass out. Then I wake up the next day. I'm woken up by my alarm and I just shoot up. And at first I'm searching my clothes and I'm searching my things again, even though I've searched them a million times. But I can hear that the phone is actually ringing in his stuff. So I go to his things and my phone is in this secret pocket. He was lying in my bed, open mouth, just staring at me. And I was also so shocked. I had to leave the scene. I didn't know what to do because at this point, you're having, you know, your realities start to kind of crash and you're like, is this person dangerous? What's going on? I grab the phone. I run to my friend's room. I'm like, oh my word, this guy stole my phone. And they just look at me and go back to sleep. I'll never forget it. It was so funny. But they just looked at me and just...
It's too much. When you're just waking up, it's actually too much to take in.
So I go back to my room because I have other valuables in the room as well. So I run back to my room. I'm just like, dude, you have to leave. So I kick this guy out.
Like a whole secret pocket. One that he made or that was like a feature of the pants?
I think it was a feature of the pants. It was way too well done. But he was working in fashion, so he could have done it, to be fair.
Unfortunately, that morning wasn't the last time that Ora would see or hear from the thief.
The next day, he's calling me on the phone. It's all like, it was a joke, it was a joke. And I was just so furious because he was calling me on the phone that he tried to steal. And I realized on our dates, the reason he made such an intentional date is because he didn't have a phone to call me with. That's why he didn't take my number. I only got angry when he started calling me and showing up to places where he knew I would be and lurking at the edge of my circle and stuff. That's when I started getting upset. And so I started telling everyone that he stole my phone. Anyone and everyone that would listen. anytime he'd be around, the thing is he would always place himself next to me. So I'd be at Kitchener's and he'd be there as well. And he'd maybe be sitting like 2 people away from me, but like looking at me. So I'll tell these 2 people, I'll be like, guys, remember that guy I told you about who stole my phone? It's that guy. So I was doing that for a couple of weeks. What I found annoying is how other people in my life didn't take me seriously enough to protect me from this guy. And it's something that I found quite consistent in Joburg. And I don't know if this is patriarchy or just people being dumb. But if somebody does your friend dirty, and I mean, this is crime we're talking about, how do you continue to let that person into your event, for example? Because a lot of my friends throw parties. So one night, a friend of mine had an event and this guy was there. I was just like, dude, like, tell him to leave. Why should I have to do this?
Someone who knew.
Someone who knew and who knew me, who knew the entire story.
So this guy was pretty much in your circles.
Yeah, which is how I actually felt safe taking him home the first time. Like, people I knew him. He wasn't a complete rando or a complete stranger. But this is the thing with Joburg, is that your proximity makes people not strange, but they actually are. Even if you've seen them around, they could be very dangerous.
The indifference and ambivalence of the people in her circle had stung. So when Ora spotted the phone thief at Kitchener's about a week after her incident, she decided she'd do better than her friends had done by her.
About a week or 2 after that, I went back to Kitchener's. I'm hanging out and I see this guy dancing with a girl. And I'm just going back and forth. I'm like, should I tell her? Should I not tell her? I'm like, I have to tell her. So I go to this honey and I'm like, Joe, this guy stole my phone. You know, he steals phones. And she was like, yeah, I know. My phone's in my bra. And I was, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just, why are you so dumb? Like, why are you such a dumb bitch? Like, I'm sorry to call anybody a dumb bitch, but that is the definition of stupidity. But that was also me. Like, I chose not to look at what was in front of me because, you know, I wanted to be held or to get laid or to whatever. But actually, you know.
Ora realized she'd actually been targeted by a known thief.
The person introduced me to the guy who stole my phone, continued to hang out with him. And I saw them hanging out after this guy had taken my phone and we were all present. And I kept my distance. I didn't say anything, but they both saw me. Until a few days later, the friend came to me and said, yeah, he also stole my thing. He stole my wallet. And I was like, there you go, you know?
Why? Like, why did everyone behave like this?
For me, I think there's a few reasons. The first one, I think because I'm a woman. So anything bad that happens to me, I must just handle. And no one's going to stand up for me. Even other women. The other thing I think is going on is that we're so desensitized to crime that until it happens to you, it's just it's a rumor, you know, it's a vicious rumor. Yeah, and the third reason I think is because of patriarchy. Like, men's characters are just assumed to be great until we have proof. You know, there has to be proof.
All right, now looking back, like, what do you think happened there?
Honestly, here's the thing. Via men or romantic partners, my standards were obviously in the toilet at the time. Whether or not I had alarm bells, I can't really say because I think at this point I was dealing with so many toxic people that I suppressed that voice that tells me, like, don't do this, don't speak to this person, don't take them home, this is a bad idea. And we obviously all have that voice. I just wasn't listening. And of course, I paid the consequences.
In a place like Kitchener's, where alcohol and drugs flow freely, it can be hard to hear the whisper of your intuition over the loud music. But here's the thing about Ora's story. It's actually not that typical one about waking up the next morning and seriously regretting a drunken decision.
It's very interesting because at the time I was completely sober. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing drugs. I was sober. I was working a 9 to 5. On the outside of it, I was a completely stable person. But it was a time when I was just really starting to learn about mental health. I was starting to learn about anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was just really, really beginning to grapple with the kind of mind that I have and the kind of personality that I have. And I was starting to build standards for myself about people that I'm supposed to be around and the experiences that I'm going to have. But I'd just moved to the city. So I was extremely naive, and I was kind of, I guess, testing myself against this like incredible space and just like figuring it out. I never felt, even with the phone incident, that I was in danger or that I'd made like this terrible choice. I did feel a little bit victimized and a little bit stupid. But I never felt like it was a result of something bad that I did. It was more just a reflection of the fact that I wasn't like requiring enough from the people that I was spending my time with, actually.
And then the morning comes. The sun rises and lights up the city of gold, no matter what unsavory things took place during the night. You know, when Joburgers hear stories about theft and other petty crime, I think we have this knee-jerk response where we often say, oh, well, at least you weren't hurt, or at least you still have your life. And I know it's true. You know, many don't make it through the night in the city because of the senseless acts and bad decisions of others. But it's also a way of bypassing how difficult it is to define exactly what is lost when we are violated by crime or a close shave with harm. The sun rises, and your life, your relationships, and your perspective on the city are never the same again. Thank you for visiting Golden City. If you liked this episode, like, follow, subscribe on all social media and streaming platforms. If you love this podcast, give us 5 stars. I'd love to feature you on Golden City. To submit your story, go to www.goldencitypodcast.co.za. See you next time.